Letters number 17. Understanding worry and stress. The starting point for worry and stress is birth. At first, we worry about the four principal needs: food, clothing, shelter, and medicines. From the time we were born, we seek happiness by striving to accumulate these principal needs. It does not occur to us that this is a continuous striving right through our lives and only stops at death. All these desires reach a person through the sense doors. We fulfill them usually using our three formations, which are speech, bodily action, and thinking. The course of action we take to achieve our desires can be wholesome or unwholesome. Let us look at a Jataka story, Mahasilava Jataka 51, when the Bodhisattva in a previous life was born as a king in the city of Benares. His name was King Goodness the Great and ruled over his kingdom following the 10 great principles known as Dasaraja Dhamma. The people in the kingdom were very honest. The poor and sick were well cared for. There was no violence or conflicts, and law and order prevailed. One day, word came to the king's ears that his prime minister had misbehaved in the harem. When the king found out that this was true, he called the prime minister and asked him to take his family and wealth and leave the city, and then he can return to the kingdom only after he has learned to restrain his sense doors. The prime minister felt humiliated and became very angry and vengeful and left with his family to a neighboring kingdom, the kingdom of Kosala. The wily prime minister, now stripped of all his powers but driven by his desire to seek vengeance, cunningly wormed his way to the king's advisory council. He eventually became the most trusted minister of King Kosala. One day he advised King Kosala to invade the kingdom of Benares, as the king there was weak and that the kingdom is a very easy target to annex. King Goodness of Benares got word of the arrangements made by King Kosala to invade his kingdom and sent out a message to say that King Kosala can come at any time and take over the kingdom. King Kosala, however, was very suspicious and did not trust King Goodness's words. So King Kosala, as soon as he got control of the kingdom, ordered the King Goodness and his ministers to be buried in the burial ground up to their necks, so that they will be prey to the jackals during the night. When a pack of jackals came to the burial ground hunting for food, they saw the buried men and came to attack. The leader of the pack targeted the king. The king waited till the leader got close enough to him and got hold of the jackal by the neck with his teeth. The jackal let out a yell and the pack fled in fright. The leader tried to get loose of the king's grip and in his struggle loosened the soil around the king. The king was able to loosen the soil with his hands and managed to get out of the pit and then freed his ministers. At the same time, there were two demons who were fighting to divide a dead body between them, as the dead body was found on the boundary of their two domains. Having heard of the just King Goodness, they approached him for a solution. The demons used their supernormal powers to get the king and his ministers all cleansed, and once the king divided the corpse to their satisfaction, the grateful demons ended up taking the king and his ministers back to their homes in the kingdom through their supernormal powers. When King Kosala saw King Goodness in the palace, wearing his royal robes, he was astonished, as the palace was well guarded. King Goodness told him the story in detail, and King Kosala was overcome with shame and asked forgiveness and bowed to King Goodness in respect. From that day on, they became the best of friends and ruled the two kingdoms judiciously. At long last, the traitor who conspired against King Goodness learned his lesson. King Goodness was happy that he persevered and avoided war and saved lives of people on both sides. The story illustrates how doing harm to others brings unhappiness, while a good heart wins them all. What are the great qualities King Goodness valued and followed? They are charity, morality, appreciation, straightforwardness, gentleness, restraint, non-hatred, patience, friendship, and non-violence. From this story, we learn that to develop Sila is not that easy because we are not born with that knowledge, wisdom, and skills. This is why we need Kalyana Mitta to encourage and help us develop these qualities. How to overcome stress and body? Stress and body could be physical or mental pain. If we use our wisdom to understand these and develop skillful means to solve them, we can overcome our problems wisely. That means seeing the state of mind, accepting and not being in denial, and applying wisdom to overcome the situation. This could be seen in the characters of the good king and his scheming prime minister. According to Lord Buddha's teachings, Sila is the first step. That is, guarding our sense doors with speech, bodily action, and thinking. Next step is associating with Kalyana Mitta, somebody who would give us wise advice and protect us from danger. When we read about Bodhisattva characters, as each story exhibits the great qualities of Kalyana Mitta, Sila teaches us to protect our speech and bodily action. Lord Buddha taught us to develop our minds through the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And finally, we use wisdom to develop the necessary characteristics. By oneself indeed is evil done, and by oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil not done, and by oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend entirely on oneself. No one can purify another. Dhammapada, verse 165.